Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes even the international. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Monday. It's a Monday all day long. A little bit of rain here and there across the listening area, so stay dry if you can. But I can tell you right now, my grass is getting crunchy, as Charlene calls it, and crunchy grass is never good. So we need a little rain. Anyway, hope you're having a good one. And Boomer's on the board. How you, buddy?
I'm good if I can push the button.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. How was your weekend?
It's uneventful.
I think I may have asked you that earlier when I came in too, and I think I commented those are sometimes the best weekends.
Sometimes.
I mean, sometimes sitting around in your flannel pants watching a game or your feet kicked up is maybe one of the best weekends.
Well, watching a game will be this next weekend.
Okay, coming up. All right. Hey, we got a great show laid on for you. 3 o'clock today. He's been on before. Former state senator and now Supreme Court candidate Brian Taylor is going to be on because Brian, if there's anybody in this state who knows the gambling laws in this state, it's him. He has served through 2 governor's administrations, and he was an advisor to Governor Riley during the bingo task force that was underway at the time. He understands the ins and outs of the law, which is why he's also running now for the Supreme Court. And Brian Taylor is going to be giving us some commentary about that very thing. I'll tell you about that more in just a minute. Brian Taylor, Supreme Court candidate, former state senator, on at 3 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, State Senator Arthur Orr. Senator Orr came out recently and said that in his position of leadership that he could foresee the legislature using the power of the purse for universities and others who try to use DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. I got plenty of stuff on that too, so we'll talk about it with Senator Arthur Orr at 4 p.m. And then I got a triple dipper full of stuff. Hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, rolling the dice. So it's amazing to me, and by the way, it's going to be a 2-part discussion. Regardless of how you feel about gaming, you have to question what some of the leadership in our state is saying. And I'll talk about that in light of the gambling laws and the proposal for gambling laws and the reasons for the proposals for gambling laws, all in number 1 of the Triple Dipper. Y'all stay tuned for that, rolling the dice. And then number 2, in conjunction with that conversation with State Senator Orr, I'm calling it DEI fatigue. DEI is about wearing its welcome out. It's been the flavor of the month. It was one of the latest wokeisms that had to happen. Everybody had to have some DEI policy, got to have a DEI coordinator, got to have some DEI. Well, DEI fatigue is now setting in, and we're seeing it left and right. But there are still examples, egregious examples of things going on, even right here in Alabama. So we'll talk about that. DEI fatigue, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, I didn't get to it Friday, so I've got it on tap for today, is common sense uncommon? That's a heck of a question, man. The answer is going to wind up being yes, at least depending on where you are. We'll talk about various policies being put into place around the nation where you look at it and go, that makes no sense. So common sense must be uncommon where they are. Anyway, all those things and more on today's show. Triple Dipper, yep, stand by. It's all coming up. So let me jump over to my comments. I'll remind you that the Rightside Way monologue, every day as we start the show off, I do my monologue, and we call it the Rightside Way. The sponsor of the Rightside Way is Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics throughout North Alabama. You can find them in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Attala, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. More to come, I understand. But Southern Immediate Care is a great chain of facilities, open 7 days a week, and they will take care of all your needs from pediatric to geriatric. So check them out, Southern Immediate Care. All right, so let me jump in here. And I'm going to tell you, this was going to be a little heavy. But I'll start off light by saying, you know what? There's something special about baby laughter. Baby laughter, man. I'm telling you, if you're having a bad day, just get on your phone and Google baby laughter. And in seconds, you will be smiling. Baby laughter has like an unabashed depth to it. It's real. Baby laughter is from the heart. There's an innocence to it, an absolute purity. It is joy expressed at levels that adults can rarely match. That's because babies are special. Everything's a wonder. Nothing is old hat. As babies develop into children, we can marvel at the various stages of their growth and development. Every age has its milestones. A few weeks ago, our grandkids were here. We measured them on the measuring stick that I hung on the wall. And my grandson has grown 2 inches in the past 6 months. 2 inches! No wonder they can't keep shirts on that boy. He's growing like a weed. Well, kids are truly a gift from God. And I know that parenting can be hard. And I would bet that some of y'all out there are grandparenting in the absence of the actual parents. And thank you for that. Thank you for what you're doing. It means something. Because yes, children are truly a gift from God. And that's why I'm concerned. Our culture is on the one hand, doing all that we can for our kids. And on the other hand, we're destroying them at a rate never before seen. As a nation, as a culture, we are going to be held accountable one day. It's not enough to say that we were good stewards with our possessions or our skills and talents or our natural resources or our time. One of the greatest forms of stewardship that any culture can be measured against is a simple question: what did you do with the children? There's a horrible story right now out of Virginia. It's a heavy one, but it epitomizes so much of what we have to get a handle on. There was a troubled young girl, I won't name her, but she's named in the article, but there was a troubled young girl in the public schools in Appomattox County, Virginia. The story's on the Daily Wire right now. At 14 years old, the young lady decided she wanted to transition to be a trans male. Her school system decided to help her, and they did not tell the parents that every day at school they were working with their daughter to change her identity. But they also didn't bother to tell the parents that as a part of this, the young lady was also being bullied by other students. And the parents were obviously out of touch, but the school system was also out of line. And the secrecy and the bullying became too much for the young lady, and apparently she ran away, whereupon she was preyed upon by child sex traffickers, taken to Baltimore, kept in a locked room where she was repeatedly raped. But she was eventually rescued by the FBI, except that the activist Baltimore public defender by the name of Anissa Khan refused to return her to her parents because they would not affirm her trans identity. So here's a young lady who has been bullied, harassed, taken advantage of by a school system that was going to lie to the parents. She runs away, she's sex trafficked, she's raped repeatedly, and then once they find her and rescue her from the sex traffickers, the activist prosecutor won't let her go home because the parents won't affirm her gender identity. What the heck? Khan, the activist public defender, even threw away letters the parents were sending to their daughter while she was being detained and led the girl to believe that they did not even want her. Khan even put the young lady in a boys' group home. And when a judge then ordered Khan to return the girl to her parents' custody, Khan chose to appeal. Meanwhile, the stress on the young girl had reached a point that she ran away again, and she was abducted once again by a sexual predator and taken off to Texas. Texas authorities rescued her for a second time and immediately returned her to her parents. Praise God. As you might imagine, the parents are now suing the Baltimore Public Defender's Office and the Appomattox County School System. Now, those events occurred in 2021. From what I gathered in the several articles that I reviewed, she does appear to be doing well. And Virginia state legislators have also introduced legislation. They're going to name it after her. It would prevent any school system from ever withholding information from parents. I hope that lawsuit brings some justice. I hope some well-deserved justice to that sweet young lady who had her childhood robbed from her by a combination of activism, arrogance, indifference, and sexual predators. I mean, at every single turn, society failed her. At every turn. I can't speak for her parents. I don't know if they were tuned out or just kept out. But I do know this: they never stopped trying to bring her home. But if kids are a gift from God, and I believe they are, if kids are a gift from God, then how is it that we as a society have allowed so much pervasive and abusive behavior to be afflicted upon them? On the one hand, we're seeing more and more kids who remain in a perpetual state of adolescence, while on the other hand, we see them being forced into adult decisions about their sexual identity. Scientific American ran an article a few years ago. It said that 25 is the new 18. 25 is the new 18. The trends are there that many kids see no reason to grow up and accept what my daughter used to jokingly refer to as adulting. Whether it be a result of the digital age or helicopter parents or a willingness to simply mollycoddle teens into their 20s, The fact remains that less of our younger society is fully prepared or even willing to engage society at the next level. One researcher from Columbia University stated, 25 is the new 18, and a delayed adolescence is no longer a theory, but a reality. In some way, we're all in a psychosocial moratorium, she said, experimenting with a society where swipes constitutes dating and likes are the equivalent of conversation. Okay. But yet we tell our children they need to make adult decisions about sex and sexual identity. Does he see the contradiction here? States like California allow kids as young as 12 to make their 12. States like California allow kids as young as 12 to make their own healthcare decisions without parental consent. But yet studies show that upwards of 80% of children who do have gender dysphoria embrace their own biological sex as they emerge from puberty. But children who face a social contagion of constant pressure to follow their own truth and get medical intervention and even surgeries wind up more often than not with a lifetime of counseling and medication. Whatever the case, it is socially oxymoronic of us as a culture to, on the one hand, raise up children to be children past their prime, big man-childs and girly women who have no desire or motivation to exit the nest. But at the same time, we have a society that will tell a child they need to understand, accept, and even participate in adult versions of sexuality. Even to the extent of allowing children who cannot drive or legally sign a contract or marry or join the military, allowing them to make a decision that says that they are not what their biology says they are. Folks, I'm going to tell you, we have reached the zenith of social schizophrenia. On the one hand, telling a child to never grow up, while on the other, demanding they be treated like an adult. We have to rein this in. We have to affirm our kids, love our kids, and remain involved in their lives. We must love them enough to tell them no and teach them responsibility, but yet shield them from the burdens of adulthood before their time. They will be adults soon enough. And I wonder, how will they remember their childhood? Kids are a gift from God, and we are called to be good stewards of his gifts. So go listen to some baby laughter and tell me I'm wrong. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, it really is crazy when you think about it, y'all. I mean, on the one hand, the new dynamic is kids that never leave home, kids that don't make adult decisions or enter the adult world. They don't want to. They've never been led up to believe they should. At the same time, though, you got 12-year-olds in California making medical decisions that they should never be required to make, ever, about their sexuality. Come on. We're going to be held to account for this one day. Let's be on the right side of it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Yeah, making it cool to be a conservative. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Regarding my monologue a moment ago, Mike from Athens said, wow, bullying on top of bullying. Yeah, it was, man. It was awful. I mean, I read that story, broke my heart for that young lady. The full story, if you want to see it, is on Daily Wire. That's where I found it first, and I found it on a couple of other places. The Federalist had a copy of it, too. Brian from Huntsville says, when common sense and wokeness are mixed in the same beaker in a lab, there is inevitably an explosion. No doubt, man. No doubt. Yeah, wow. Amy from Danville, they keep allowing all these kids to make adult decisions, and we keep saying they're too young. The left will counter with lowering the voter age. John from Hunt says, Phil, nice monologue, but sad. I also just want to let Boomer know the last time I checked, over 50 people have joined the college football pick'em. So, okay, John, thank you for the segue. I was about to say, boom shakalaka, how we doing on the NCAA pick'em?
A little over 50, I believe.
Come on.
So, yeah, come on. If you're one to, if you love college football and you like to play college football games, come join the Rightside Ruffian.
Wait a minute.
Let's do it.
How about if you love Radio?
Oh, how about if you love Rightside
And
Radio?
you just even moderately like football. You can.
You don't even play, just sign up.
All right, so just for the benefit of those who might not have been tuned in on Friday, start over again. Tell them how to do it.
All right, so we have a college pick'em going for the season of college football. All you need to do is go to our website, www.rightsideradio.org, and in the top right-hand corner, you'll see directions, a link. Click it. It'll tell you how to sign up, and another link on how to sign up, basically, is what you do. And then basically, all it is, every week around Monday or Wednesday, the picks will come out, and you will be able to pick the team that you think is going to win that week. And make sure you push submit for the week, and then voila.
We're not asking you to do stats or run the spreads.
No spreads.
There's no
this time.
online gaming going on here. This is not a gambling
Just for
operation.
fun. Getting some right-side ruffians together.
Right. Just going to see who can pick them better.
And John is ready, apparently. He's ready for it.
And I will confess to you. I will confess to you in the presence of all the ruffians. I forgot to do it last night.
Oh, you forgot to
so
do
I'm
it.
going to get signed up today.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So it shall happen. I can probably do it during a break, couldn't I?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You do
All
it
right.
quick.
All right. We'll see if I can pick better than I did during the March Madness bracket that we had. That was awful.
We all did awful.
I was actually starting off pretty good in that
Except
one.
for McQueen. McQueen did great.
Oh yeah, McQueen did great.
She says she is going to sign up for this one, but I have not reminded her, so because I'm hoping she will not.
Okay, because she showed us up so badly last
Exactly.
time. All right. Listen, we got plenty of stuff on tap for you, and this first topic we're going to kick off with here in just a minute: rolling the dice. You've heard me talk before about the history of gambling legislation or lack thereof in Alabama. Let me tell you though, it's really a multi-pronged. Maybe even in the military, you might say you come at it on multiple axes. All right, so it's a multi-pronged story. We're not going to look at this. If you are opposed to gambling or you're for gambling, if you like going to casinos or you don't want casinos, you can even set that aside and just talk about why it is what it is right now, because it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. What it really is going to wind up boiling down to is a question of leadership. It's do you want to enforce what is existing under the law? And I'll start off in a minute by reminding you of that legend of whom movies and TV series have been made, Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, back during the era of Prohibition. And this is not about Prohibition. It's not. It's about what are you going to do with laws that currently exist on the books and people who are flaunting them? Do you just roll over and go, this is too hard to enforce them. I don't know how we do it. Well, then why are you in the position you're in? If you can't do the job, get out of the way. Let somebody else in there who can do it. But the truth is, it's a question not just of legislation and not just of whether or not you want to see gaming in the state or not. Those are certainly arguments to be had. But the first thing we have to discuss is why in the state of Alabama we have such a dearth of leadership. Dearth of leadership. Like an absolute absence of leadership. But not entirely. There's some highlights. I'll tell you about those too. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That'd be this one, Alabama. This one right here, Alabama. I mean, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right, Boomer, we have our first naysayer. Roughly Ann from Huntsville. She says, I love Rightside. I care little for football.
We had actually the other day we had a couple. Yeah, they're like, stick to politics.
Oh, this is not. No.
This is not about.
No.
This is just for fun.
Listen, the 4 E's, right? The 4 E's. We say this show every single day is going to conduct the 4 E's. We're going to enlighten, empower, educate, and entertain on what it means to be a conservative. And oh, by the way, football's good for the soul.
It is good for the soul.
Thank you very much.
Makes some of us happy.
That's right. Tony from Piedmont says, rolling the dice, I could care less. It's a tax on the stupid. Okay. But I tell you what, though, when you get through talking, Tony, if you still feel that way, let me know. Ryan from Hazel Green says, I got in the Pick'em group as a reigning champion from a different league last season. I say let the games and the smack talk begin. Ryan from Hazel Green. Good luck, ruffians, he says. I love it, man. All right. Hey, listen. So, number one, contrary to Tony's comment, I will say this. Rolling the dice. Rolling the dice in Alabama is not quite what you might think it is. Now, first of all, understand this. It's a constitutional issue. Gambling in the state of Alabama is prohibited by our state constitution. We can talk about that in more detail later with Brian Taylor, who's calling in at the top of the hour. It's a constitutional issue, which means in order to expand gaming or establish new versions of gaming in the state, that there will have to be a vote of the people. Constitutional issues require a vote. And so, once that referendum is complete, we'll know where we stand. Have we tried this before? Yes. The people of Alabama have voted it down at least twice. So that being said, gambling, lottery, all of it, those are actually prohibited by our state constitution. It's not a matter of, why don't y'all go down there and pass a law? Get me a lottery ticket. By God, I'm tired of driving over to Cedar Bluff or over down Cedartown, Georgia. Well, listen, if it's that hard, just, recognize it's not an overnight deal. I will tell you this, though. The question we have before us right now is not really how you feel about gaming as much as you feel about the leadership that we have and their way of handling it. There's a problem when you look at a legal matter and decide, my job says, my duty, okay, sheriffs, police chiefs, town councils, when you raised your right hand and swore to, a loyalty and to protect and defend, or to defend and uphold the Constitution of the state of Alabama and the United States, maybe that meant you had a job to do. So you may remember the story of Elliot Ness and his group that became known as the Untouchables. Movies have been made, TV series have been made. One of the most significant versions of the Untouchables was the movie that was made with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery. Great flick. During the era of Prohibition, gangsters were flaunting the law. Now, Prohibition, was it wise? I don't know. Argue that separately. Was it something that you look at and think, was it ever going to stick? Maybe not. But was it the law at the time? Yes, it was. What was Elliot Ness's job? Enforce the law. And so he did. If that's the case, then he was doing nothing wrong by enforcing it. The gangsters who flaunted the law were the actual problem. It was not a question of whether the law was what it was. It just was. His job was to handle it. Boomer, I'm going to use that audio clip here in just 1 second, too, if you get that one ready. Clip 1. I have a feeling I'm going to be using the cough button a lot today. I don't know what my deal is. It's a good thing we have a cough button right now. So the bottom line is this. If the law exists on the books, The option is not made available to you to enforce it if you're in law enforcement or in the DA's office or in the AG's office or in the governor's office. The option is not there. The option is only there for the legislature to change the law. And if it involves gambling, then the people of the state will have to also join in by voting on the law. So what do we have right now? We have a theme that is running. Well, there's a lot of illegal gaming out there. Governor Ivey herself said it's hard to enforce. Okay, but you're the governor, and that's your job. Well, it's hard to enforce. So I believe we should just tax it so that we can regulate it, so that, we should legalize it so that we can regulate it, so that we can tax it. That's Governor Ivey said that. That's current members of the state legislature saying that. That's certain members of law enforcement also saying that. And the truth be told, y'all, that's really not their option. Until the legislature changes it, it is designed for them to be enforced, period. So what are other examples? Phil, why are you getting so bent about this? What I'm getting bent about is about the fact that they don't want to follow through. They want a job, but they don't want to do the job. But Phil, it's not hurting anybody. Well, is it not really? Really? You think so? But we can argue that all day. The question is, if you wanted the job, if I had a soldier and I said, man, we got to take the high ground. Why? What do you mean why? Because we were ordered to take the high ground. I don't know, sir. I don't feel like that's our job today. Excuse me? It's your role is to take the high ground. Yeah, but today's an off day, isn't it? Hey, doesn't work that way. Teachers. Well, I just don't really feel like going in and teaching today. Why? I just don't feel like it's my job. It is your job. Well, but I don't really feel like you can tell me I have to do that. Well, you wanted the job. Why would you not do it? You see where I'm going with this? If we are a nation of laws, then we have to recognize that when the laws are on the books, they are designed for a purpose. And until you change those laws, the purpose is to enforce those laws, period. Our Attorney General, Steve Marshall, has been actually towing the line pretty hard on this. He has had a number of illegal gambling operations that he has helped, and his department has helped to bust in recent months. He gave a press conference. I think this press conference was April? Is this April? I think it was April. And in the press conference, he kind of said what I'm saying right now. Boomer, you got that clip? This is Attorney General Steve Marshall standing at a press conference at the door to an illegal gaming facility that they busted in Jefferson County. Go ahead.
To prevent illegal gambling to do just that.
People say that gambling isn't hurting anybody, or that somehow or another that there are other real problems for us to solve. But y'all, we don't get to pick and choose the laws in which we enforce. And certainly you prioritize your resources, but you cannot just ignore rampant gambling that's going on across your county.
Some people.
There it is. In some counties, the blind eye is being turned. Jefferson County is one that I hear mentioned quite often. And then we have the question of state legislators who are currently chairing or sitting on what is being referred to as an ad hoc committee. And yet the ad hoc committee is actually generating actual reports by their own admission to give to the Speaker of the House, Nathaniel Ledbetter, who's a good dude, has been in studio here before. But if it's an ad hoc committee, then why are you generating actual reports on a regular basis? That means you're an official committee doing work for the Speaker, or at least on behalf of the body. That being said, they are also touring illegal facilities. How do I know this? Because State Representative Andy Witt, who did text me this morning and say that he'd be glad to come on the show later this week, but State Representative Andy Witt sent a letter out to members of the legislature, inviting them to go with him to tour these facilities. We're gonna examine this in more detail. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. Before I get that letter out and start talking about it, let me go ahead and just take a break right now. We'll take the break. We'll come back from this, and then I'll start filling you in the details. But you have to recognize, folks, I am talking. So far, I've spent the last 15 minutes. I have not even discussed how we feel about gambling itself. You know why? Because the issue is first one of leadership. Don't tell me you want the job, but you don't want to do the job. If you don't want to do the job, don't take the job. We'll find somebody who does. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, making common sense a superpower. Okay, I hold in my hot little hands, thanks to Alicia for printing it out for me, a copy of a letter that was recently sent by Representative Andy Witt, who, like I said, I texted him this weekend, and he said he'd be glad to come on a little bit later in the week. His schedule didn't allow for right now. Fine with that. Just want to get him on here to make some clarification. I am concerned about state legislators saying, we're going to go tour some illegal facilities. Well, how does that work? Anyway, he goes on to say, here's a letter. He sent this to all of his colleagues in the legislature. There's no date on the letter. It's on his letterhead. And I have every reason to believe it's legit, but the date on the letter is not there. So I'm assuming, though, based on the other dates that are referenced in here, that it's probably about a week or so old. He says that he has been enjoying the summer, but as a part of, he's been directed, he says, or instructed. He said, I've been instructed to begin research on gambling issues that have plagued our state for decades. Okay. So I've traveled across the state and visited many of these gaming facilities from Dothan and Greene County and all across North Alabama. He said, what I found is simply astonishing and quite disturbing. You may recall last week, I called out kind of hard the fact that he is quoted in a news article on Alabama Daily News as saying that he's been touring illegal facilities, spent time at over a dozen of them. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. He says here, though, he's often done so accompanied by law enforcement agents and other legislators. He said, I have toured these facilities to understand the true depths of the ever-growing problem. Okay, a little bit of a risk here, but you're telling me that you are walking in the door of an illegal gaming facility that's breaking the law. Law enforcement's with you and ain't nobody saying nothing. That tells me they're operating with impunity, and that if local law enforcement is touring you around, it's because, I don't know, there's somebody turning a blind eye somewhere. He goes on to say this, I was able to obtain a list of licensed and legal, in quotes, so quote unquote, licensed and legal facilities in Jefferson County. This list did not come from Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. This is the letter now. This list did not come from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, since he has yet to return my 3 phone calls. It certainly was not surprising, as I understand that he has family members that possibly have connections to some of these facilities. Holy crap. I've heard that rumor before, but here's a state legislator putting it in print on his letterhead, basically saying, yeah, Sheriff of Jefferson County, there's some gaming facilities that apparently you have family members involved in. Then he goes on to invite the other legislators who are receiving the letter, which I believe is pretty much everybody in the House. He says, I'm inviting you to tour, either drive by or visit these facilities with me. It's my intention to visit Jefferson County on Saturday. I understand, though, that because of illness, he was not able to do it this past weekend. All right, so, and he goes on to say, I'm not trying to embarrass any particular county or their law enforcement. I'm just simply searching for facts. Okay, I am somewhat taken aback by this. I would hope, though, that all the information he's gathering, he's handing to the Attorney General, and that as he does this, if he has actual evidence that the accusation that the sheriff of Jefferson County is not following through on this because he has family members that are involved, well, that needs to also be turned over to the Attorney General. But it's a question of leadership, y'all. We cannot look at something we know is wrong, and when our job is to deal with something that is wrong, to simply choose not to deal with it. That's absolutely antithetical to leadership. That's called being a sheep and not a sheepdog. If you want to be elected to the state legislature, you have no choice but at times to sort of bow up and be the sheepdog. Now, we got a long history of this being a problem. And they talk about, well, it's illegal right now, so we got to regulate it. Y'all, the laws are the regulations. I don't know how to make this any clearer. It is regulated right now. It is regulated into illegality. If you just want to legalize gambling, just say so. Don't pretend that because we have a problem with illegal gaming facilities, that somehow gives you carte blanche to just, God almighty, we got to change the law. I don't know what to do. It's hard. It's just hard. Well, you know what? It was hard to win World War II, but you just did it one battle at a time. If you don't want to fight, just say so. If you don't want to, move forward on the issue, just say so. But don't pretend that because something is rampantly illegal, that we should do nothing about it and that somehow constitutes leadership. It doesn't. Not by a stretch. So the issue then becomes what? Okay, once you've dealt with the fact that you've got some of the members of elected office that are sheep and not sheepdogs, then you have to look at, okay, what's the issue though? Do we want more casinos? First of all, Alabama has a casino. It may not be a full-on Vegas-style casino, but Alabama has legalized gaming on the Porch Creek Indians Reservation or tribal lands down near Atmore. We do. You've also got several right across the border in Mississippi. Is it that hard for you to drive to Mississippi? So don't try and say, well, we should be getting that here. Why? So we can tax it. Oh, that's your basis. So it's the money. Well, yeah. I mean, it's going on anyway. No. So are drugs. So is prostitution. Just don't try and pretend somehow that if it's illegal that we should legalize it just so we can get more money for the state. We're already flush with cash. You just passed the biggest budgets ever in the history of the state. We have a surplus. We have a rainy day fund with billions of dollars in it. Don't try and pretend for a second that what you need is more money. More money means more government. Well, you don't need another taxing opportunity. And by the way, who ever heard of good government being built on the backs of a game of chance? Ever. That being said, if we do this, then do we do it the way they proposed before? Pray tell, Phil, what was that? Well, we have a number of gambling operations that go on here anyway. We got Victory Land. We got Green Track. We got, I'm missing the names of a few, but we've got several that are not on the Porch Creek tribal lands. So if we're going to do this, then what was it they were trying to do before? They almost passed it in 2021. Oh, that's right. Let's find the ones that have been breaking the law all along and reward them for their years of criminal activity by giving them a monopoly. What? Yes. So last time, in total violation of the ideas of the free market, what they proposed in the legislation was to say, you know what we'll do is we'll allow only 5 in the state, and we'll tell you roughly where they can be. So you can only have 5, and there'll be one in northeast Alabama, there'll be one in Jefferson County, and there'll be one, down in the coastal areas, and one over towards Dothan, and one towards Montgomery. Everybody's going to get one. Everybody, all the regions, and then what we'll do is we'll say, okay, and first choice on the licensure, it goes to the people who have been with us all along. Yeah, the ones breaking the laws. Many of whom went to jail. Some of whom most recently lost their properties to the state for failure to pay years of taxes. Doesn't that sound like just a recipe for disaster? All right, we're going to come back in a minute. My friend, former State Senator Brian Taylor, now running for Supreme Court Chief Justice. He has served through the administration of Governor Riley and Governor Ivey. He understands the gaming laws in this state perhaps better than anybody. And he also understands, by the way, the history of where we've been and what the enforcement has been like and what it looks like to have actual leadership in place. All right, you guys, Phil Williams, y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, we're in number one of the Triple Dipper. I just kind of euphemistically nicknamed it Rolling the Dice. But there's a long history in this state of dealing with this issue. And again, it's not like we haven't had referendums on lottery before. They failed. It's not like we haven't had an opportunity for, bad actors to turn the corner and do good. They've chosen not to. It's not like we haven't had people go to jail in major scandals regarding casino operations in the state of Alabama. And it's not like our Attorney General hasn't just in the last week even announced basically, victory on the part of his people for busting and shutting down illegal gaming operations. It does not mean that you just abdicate your authority. Regulation is sometimes in the form of law, and the law in this state right now says no. Until that law is changed, it's supposed to be a no, and it's supposed to be enforceable. Now, somebody who knows that better than probably anybody in the state right now is my friend Brian Taylor. Brian Taylor, former state senator, served from the Prattville area for a term when we were together down in Montgomery. He is a former JAG officer with duty overseas, and he's also, by the way, now a candidate for the position of Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. With that being said, let me call him in here. Brian Taylor, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Phil. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, thank you, man. And listen, I didn't mention in my opening there, you actually served for two governors. You were a senior advisor, if I recall, for Governor Riley, and you were a chief legal counsel for Governor Riley, and then chief legal counsel for Governor Ivey. I feel certain that you have dealt with gambling laws, and I know you did as a legislator. Probably one of the key examples of seeking to enforce the laws was Governor Riley. Talk about your time there.
Yeah, well, the Riley is remembered by a lot of people precisely because of this issue, and it happened towards the end of his administration, or at least that's what a lot of people think. Most people are not aware that the gambling issue actually predates, by many years, this dispute over what is electronic bingo. Is it bingo or slot machines? That's really the issue that we've been dealing with for the last 10 years or so, is this issue of whether the slot machine-like games are actually playing bingo within the meaning of the law. But prior to that, the state won a lawsuit all the way up to the Supreme Court, the Alabama Supreme Court, in 2000. I believe it was 2006. The racetrack in Birmingham was operating slot machine-like games, but not calling it bingo. They were calling it sweepstakes machines.
Oh, yeah.
And the court in that case really kind of laid down the law, repeated what it had said before. The court said the Alabama Constitution prohibits gambling in all of its protean shapes, which, is highfalutin lawyer language for it doesn't matter, how many different ways you slice it or cut up the machine or change the process. If it's gambling, it's illegal under the Alabama Constitution. So that case was won, and a lot of people thought that was going to be the precedent. You would think that would be the precedent. The court was very clear about that. But the next shape that it came through was this idea of bingo. And the reason that happened is we already had a number of constitutional amendments in, I want to say, 17 or 18 jurisdictions across the state authorizing nonprofit charitable bingo. This was primarily intended, these amendments were adopted so that the local Catholic church or the, whatever charity could have a bingo night, paper card bingo, and raise money that way without violating the law. Well, the slot machine manufacturers got smart on that, and they said, well, if we just design our slot machines to reach an outcome based on a fast 6-second game of bingo, then it will be bingo under these constitutional amendments, and we can open up casinos.
A 6-second game of bingo. That's great.
Yeah, 6 second. Yeah, a lot of people remember, if you had an old Windows computer, you remember playing solitaire on your computer, and you could press a button to make it play itself, and it would play like a 15-second game of solitaire all by itself. That's essentially the way these machines worked. Is you press a button, and to the user, it's a slot machine. The player doesn't know really any different, but inside the circuitry, allegedly, these machines would do a fast-paced game of bingo. So all of a sudden, these fly-by-night casinos started popping up all over the place. Walker County, in particular, was overrun by these casino operations. Hundreds of machines would be rolled in the middle of the night to an abandoned strip center, strip mall store, and they would begin to operate, advertise it as electronic bingo. Well, at the time, Senator Bishop from Walker County came to see Governor Riley and said, "We got to do something. This is killing Walker County's economy." He said, "This isn't economic development. This is just money changing hands. Nobody's producing anything. It's leading to corruption and crime. And Governor, we need your help." So you may remember the governor reached out to Attorney General Troy King at the time, and Attorney General King took the position that this was electronic bingo and that it was legal under these constitutional amendments. And Governor Riley disagreed with that, and so he set up his own anti-illegal gambling task force, appointed a special prosecutor who began to go after these facilities. And the first one was Whitehall in Lowndes County.
Yeah, that's
that
right,
case went
Whitehall.
up to the Alabama Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled, no, this is not bingo. This is not bingo as authorized by the constitutional amendment. These are more like slot machines, and they're illegal under Alabama's constitution. So that went on, and the task force, Governor Riley's task force, shut down a number of establishments across the state. Ultimately, the penultimate casinos, of course, Green Track and Victoryland, very, very large, almost Las Vegas-style casinos with hotels. The doors were closed because of the Supreme Court's decisions. And that's when the casinos began to try to push legislation to legalize it. You may remember the Sweet Home Alabama bill is what they called it.
Oh, yeah.
To make it popular with folks. And that bill ultimately, the vote buying that was going on behind the scenes ultimately led to at least one casino owner going to jail. And it was just and that was a federal case. That wasn't even a state court case. Those were federal crimes that were alleged in that case. So,
yeah, and Brian, let me jump in there real quick.
That's how it all started.
Yeah, but let me jump in there too. We found out that not only was there potential corruption among legislators and other officials in the state, we also found out that at one point that the McGregors owning Victoryland were actually paying the staff of the Republican caucus to tell him what was being said inside the caucus meetings, because they were basically, they had their hands into everybody, into everything. It was amazing.
Yeah. Not only that, you recall that there was a member of the Legislative Reference Service.
Yes.
Who a staff employee at the Legislative Reference Service, who is supposed to be a neutral writer of bills, of laws. And it turned out there was evidence that he was receiving paychecks from, I believe, from Victoryland. Don't quote me on that. It's been a long time, but I believe it was from Victoryland.
It was.
And was arguably, I think the allegation was that he was writing legislation favorable to Victoryland. Of course, the legislators whose bills he was writing didn't necessarily know that. And unfortunately, he was going to be a key witness for the prosecution in the trial, and he turned up dead.
Yeah.
Just a few days before the trial.
Yeah, died of a mysterious heart attack in the dark of night with no prior health concerns. Listen, man, I tell you what, before we go to the break, though, I got to say that one of the things that really strikes me, and you mentioned it, is that Governor Riley saw it as a leadership issue. If his AG was not going to go ahead and pursue a crime that he believed was happening and that the courts were saying was happening, I mean, the actual Supreme Court was saying crime, he chose to form a task force and pursue it basically on his own if he had to. And that's what y'all did, correct?
Yeah, we opened up the Code of Alabama, and we found a statute that authorized the governor to appoint a supernumerary district attorney. That's basically a retired district attorney to prosecute any case. And that was a really interesting time, Phil, because not only was the electronic bingo dispute an issue, but it also raised this constitutional issue of the powers as between the Attorney General and the governor. And Attorney General King took the position in the Supreme Court that he was the Attorney General and he was the decider of the law and what should be prosecuted and what shouldn't be. And the governor ended up winning in the Supreme Court because the Constitution says the governor is the supreme executive officer, the chief executive. And so the Supreme Court said, well, it's true that the Attorney General has authority, statewide authority to prosecute crimes, but the governor, as the chief executive and the supreme executive power, he also has the ability to bring cases in court and to appoint a district attorney to do that for him.
Wow, it's an amazing time, and I tell you what, and it just bugs me right now that we have so many in positions of leadership and authority around the state right now who have either A, chosen to forget those days, or B, want to forget those days, or C, they don't have any clue about those days. They don't know the fights that were underway back in the day, and the people that went to jail and the things that happened. But that being said, Brian, with a couple minutes left here, let me just say, I mean, you're looking at being potentially the next Chief Justice of our state Supreme Court. The rule of law has to mean something. I've been arguing before you came on the line with us that if the laws are what they are, it is not your choice to simply choose whether to enforce them or not. Your job is to enforce them if that's your role, because you sworn a duty to do so until such time as the laws are changed. Am I correct in saying that? How do you feel?
Yeah, and I think, you hit the nail on the head. I think you talked about this a little earlier, Phil. This is a rule of law issue. However you feel about gambling, whether you're for it or against it, this is about the rule of law. And the courts have to apply the law as it's written. We as lawyers and judges will have to deal with that law as it's currently on the books, not how some people want it to be, not how a vote may or may not go in the future. But the law on the books is very clear now, and the Supreme Court has ruled on this no fewer than 16 different times. Literally, in the last 10 years, I think there have been 16 different cases in which the court has said these slot machine-like games are not legal in the state of Alabama. They're unconstitutional. And so far, the legislature and the people of Alabama have not changed that law. So the Supreme Court's precedent is very clear on this. And they've had plenty of times to revisit the issue, and they've maintained the same stance year after year. Well,
I knew you'd have perspective, and I mean, you and I have had discussions before, and we dealt with it when we were both in the legislature together. And I suspect this issue is not going to go away anytime soon. The reality is, though, in the middle of all of it, depending upon how you feel about gambling, you still have to recognize there's a leadership question here and a position you have to take on how you feel about the rule of law. Listen, Brian Taylor, you've got incredible history with this, and thank you for your service to the state. If folks want to know more about who you are and how to find out about your campaign, where can they find you?
Sure. It's they can go to my website, bryantaylor.com. That's BRYAN, Taylor.com. And all the information you need to know about me is right there. And we'd love to come on your show and talk about this some more. I could go on for hours talking about the history. It's really a fascinating story how this has unfolded over the last decade.
I'm pretty sure if anybody could write a book on this, you could, man. All right, Brian Taylor, we appreciate you as always. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. All right, Boomer, we'll take the break right now. We'll take it. I ran a little long. We'll come back and have very little time, but then coming up at the bottom of the hour, we'll switch gears entirely. Going to go over to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. And we're going to have State Senator Arthur Orr on the line to discuss some recent comments he made about holding some people accountable with the power of the purse. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Hey, listen, by the way, it is dumping down rain over here in northeast Alabama. I hope it is getting some wetness over where y'all are at some point, because there's a lot of crispy grass around the northern part of the states, this heat we've been having. Hey, listen, one story we're tracking that I've not been able to see any clarity on. There's been nothing given. I take it back. There's something brand new. So University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill, has been on lockdown with an order for everyone to shelter in place because there was an active shooter event of some type. And they've just given the all clear. So first time I've mentioned it, but as I mentioned it, that story appears to have been clearing up. I don't know if they caught the guy, if they determined it was a non-issue or what, but the reality is UNC Chapel Hill had a shelter-in-place order. Students were being evacuated in some areas, and they've now been given the all clear and told to resume their normal activities. So we're glad to hear it. Several things on the scales here with us. Let me see what I got. Plenty of text messages coming up in a few minutes. By the way, we will have State Senator Arthur Orr. We're going to catch him while he's traveling and get him on the line, talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But some of the text messages I just got, let me grab some of those. Allie from Athens says, she says, Senator, Colonel, Pastor, friend, you are on fire. She said, you've made some of the best presentations on the problem with casinos and gambling and the whole shooting match that I've ever heard. Well done, sir. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Steve from Tennessee regarding, the letter by State Representative Andy Witt saying that he had been instructed to do this research. He said he was instructed to research by who? Well, apparently one of the other articles that I've got indicates that he might have been instructed by the Speaker of the House. TL from Huntsville says there is plenty of data around that supports that shows that casinos increase crime and lower property values in surrounding neighborhoods. Says, I predict lawsuits if they get, he calls them NIMBY lawsuits. That stands for not in my backyard. Not in my backyard lawsuits if they get a gambling bill through. So any bill should include a provision that the gaming facility goes next to Andy Witt's house. Oh wow. And by the way, we're going to get him on the show hopefully later this week. Maybe he'll come on and provide some, well-intentioned clarity, and we'll understand better where he's coming from. But so far, everything he's saying is just, it ain't working. Francisco from Huntsville. Hey guys, what's the real reason Alabama doesn't have a legalized gambling and lottery? I've been told that corruption would be a reason why we don't change the law and legalize it. Isn't it corrupt by keeping gambling illegal and circulating the fines and penalties from the money and earned with the state government? No, it's not. It says it's a travesty that Alabamians spend millions outside the state because of these petty laws. Well, they're not petty if they're laws. So, Francisco, basically, if the law was passed through a duly enacted act of the legislature and voted upon by the people to be included in the state constitution, and then denied for further votes later on because they don't want to change it, there's nothing about it being petty. What's petty is calling it petty. But I'll say this. The idea that it's hard for someone to buy a lottery ticket just means they don't want to drive to Georgia. If you want to say that we need the money, well, then explain to me why we need the money on top of budget surpluses that we've had in the last few years. Just saying. All right, plenty more where that came from. We'll have State Senator Arthur Orr on the line right after this. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That's this one, Alabama. I'm talking about this show sends its signal like way on down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right, hey, listen, we're going to move to the next part, second part of the Triple Dipper. I'm calling this DEI fatigue. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't know if you're sick of hearing about it, but I am. But diversity, equity, and inclusion, you would think that would mean happy things, good things. Not things like what we just saw coming out in a story on Fox News this morning, in which a Colorado public school diversity teacher was determined to have a curriculum that would focus on, quote, what he called the bad things done by white people. It didn't go over well with his coworkers, and now she is mad. Okay. But, we got stuff right here at home. And before I go too deep into the topic, I thought I'd bring somebody on who had some recent comments about it. One of the leaders in our state is State Senator Arthur Orr, who hails from the Decatur area. Senator Orr represents Senate District 3. He is also one of the leadership within the Alabama State Senate and chairs the Education Budget Committee. Senator Orr recently had some comments about the fact that the University of Alabama remains focused on DEI initiatives in spite of recent Supreme Court rulings that say, stop using race and other things as part of your basis. That being said, he mentioned whether or not we need to start using the power of the purse. So without further ado, let me just bring on State Senator Arthur Orr. Senator Orr, how you doing, man?
Hey, Phil, good to be with you this afternoon. And I don't want to conflate the issues between, discrimination in admissions versus DEI initiatives across college campuses. A little bit different, but still the spirit is the same. And but I look forward to talking with you today.
Well, so let's talk about what we do know. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, regardless of whether it falls into the Supreme Court's ruling more recently in the case involving Harvard and others, we still see right now, though, that it's often being used as something to sort of bridle up and bring in critical race theory, sort of making a mockery of the idea that people can work within a meritocracy, that they have to somehow be given a hand up at all times because people are either institutionally bound or they're going to wind up being privileged, and so that the DEI specialists have to deal with it. We had an issue at University of Alabama recently. A nursing student decided to quit. You had some comments about that in a recent story on 1819 News. Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, the story was certainly troubling, but it's just one of what I will praise as many that I've heard over the last 6 to 12 months bubbling up from constituents in the North Alabama area, but from other areas of the state. And perhaps as the budget chair for education, I seem to perhaps get more of those. I don't know. But all troubling coming from our Alabama public institutions. And we spend millions and millions of dollars across most, not all, of our public universities for DEI initiatives. And I think it's time to step back, Phil, and analyze these and say, what are we trying to gain from this? Is it more divisive than bringing people together? Can we not focus on student success for all students, not just one subset or one group, but all sets, and particularly first-generation Pell Grant students, be they black, be they white, be they brown, be they purple. I don't care. But how do we raise the boats for all and try to work with success for all rather than the divisiveness that we see in the DEI initiative? And quite frankly, Phil, I don't know if it gets into closet Marxism or what, by just trying to divide our country, divide our society, and this particular case by race, and we certainly had enough of that in the history of the United States, and we need to pull together.
Well, I completely agree. I mean, I think you try to find where's the fine line, because DEI is supposedly rooted in the idea of making sure that we have fairness. The application of opportunity is fairly applied. But so often what we see is it's replaced with activism. And someone with an agenda winds up getting a position in DEI. And I'll be honest with you, conservatives, by and large, are sick to death of being told over and over again that they have to yield to someone's DEI perspectives when the truth is all they're being told is to yield to activism. And when it's on the public dime, that's where it really matters too.
Well, you hear about, white superiority, and if there are people like that thinking that because of their skin color, they're somehow superior to other of a different skin color, well, shame on them. But I don't think you cannot apply that across the board to all white people. That's just, but that's the mindset that I think the DEI progressives are pushing across campuses. They go off to these conferences, they network with other DEI folks from around the country, and then they come back to Alabama with a whole new passel of things to, again, in my mind, create division, and that's not what we need in our state.
No, it is absolutely not. Now, you made some comments in your most recent interview with 1819 that came out, I guess, today, actually, and you said that one of the most direct courses for dealing with it may be through the allocation of public funds. Is that something y'all are going to examine?
Well, the question was posed to me. Well, Senator, what's your solution to this? How do we? And I'd say, help all first generation students or help all students that need additional help to be successful. But in addition to that, as far as a non-specific plan, the current status quo needs to change. And I don't really have in my back pocket an answer, but I told the interviewer one of the things that the legislature, one of our levers is one of the things we can do to show our displeasure with the current state of affairs or the status quo is the power of the purse, is the appropriation process. And I think that could be on the table next legislative session, unless we see some real consideration and change across some of the university campuses in our state.
Well, so how would you do that, in your opinion? I mean, I've been there to see the budget processes, but you know it better than anybody being a budget chairman. I mean, would you just write language into the budget that says can't be used for DEI, or would you just defund an organization?
You can do that, but, listen, the universities have other resources that they're able to use in addition to our state-funded resources. So I think you just see a reduction. Maybe there's a more thoughtful way of doing it, but you look at a reduction. And again, you know that it's a numbers game in the legislature, and I'm only one of 140. But if the consensus is there among a majority that we've got to get their attention, then to me that's a lever that could be pulled.
Well, I also know, too, that the UA system, especially because they're broader, they have UA, UAH, UAB, but then basically all the state universities, I mean, they've got their own lobbying efforts, and they've also got their influences, and they each have, they are considered part of the constituency for various districts around the state for members of the legislature. That's an uphill climb, but I do hope that somehow or another we can rein this in, because it's a black eye on the state when you see people openly saying, I am leaving this institution. We had one professor left earlier this year and went to Colorado, leaving behind what he said was a very woke university, UA again. And then now we have the nursing school at UA. We also have two of the founders of critical race theory that are still on staff at the UA Law School. So I'm not sure why they are so committed to this type of aberrant review of society, but somehow or another, something's got to be done.
Well, this is something, as I said, that bears scrutiny, and I would assume now it's up to the legislature because the universities all have their independent boards. You are correct. The University of Alabama is a very strong institution when it comes to lobbying power, but that gets back to your listeners, Phil. If the people are upset about this and they're letting their legislators know, they have in numbers, they have the ultimate say on most every issue. They can trump the money, the power, the influence of the lobbying community if they will let their legislators know their sentiments. And then just in this morning, since that article came out, I've received several emails from people from around the state with examples, Phil, of problems that they've had with DEI on other campuses in the state. Wow.
I have no doubt, man. Well, listen, I'd love to touch base with you on again at sometime soon. I appreciate you making time. I know you're traveling. We can hear the PAs in the background at the airport. But thank you for your time, Senator Orr, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Hey, thank you much.
All right, take care. All right, that was State Senator Arthur Orr, a member of leadership in the Alabama State Senate, and he's also a budget chairman, and he's also the chairman of the education budget. So, yeah, he may say he's one of 140, but he's also one of the senior, more powerful members of the 140. And if anybody can say, you know what, we're going to take some action on universities that pursue DEI initiatives, well, he's the one that can lead the way on that. We'll see what happens. More to come. In the meantime, we're taking a break right now. We'll come back from the break, and I'm going to keep moving on this one. DEI fatigue. Are you sick of it? Dadgum, I am. We'll talk about it more in detail. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. And I mean to say, making common sense a superpower. Hey, by the way, there is some serious weather brewing across the northeastern parts, especially of our listening area. Northeast Alabama's got some major red cells. Not sure, but I thought we heard a storm siren a few minutes ago. But then again, maybe somebody was mowing grass. I don't know what I was hearing, but all said and done, just keep a weather eye on the horizon out there, especially, by the way, thoughts and prayers for Florida as they are bracing for Hurricane Idalia, a Category 3 hurricane, scheduled to come out of the Gulf, cross over the western shores of Florida, and go straight across the Florida, really right around the Panhandle, Upper Florida area. So anyway, keep in mind that Florida is facing major hurricane weather. We will likely see spinoffs from that as well. So there's that. One good thing about the rain, though, is we're looking at the temperatures coming down this week, Boomer. I'm just saying.
Yes, I'm very happy about that.
I said that when I got back from Baghdad, I would never complain about heat again. Apparently, I'm far enough removed that I can just forget that I said that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Either that or I've gotten older. So anyway.
What are the two?
Freaking hot, man.
It is so hot.
Smoking hot. All right. Hey, listen, I'm going to keep moving on this DEI fatigue. So, listen, I mean, there's got to be a dose of common sense applied somewhere. If you are in the position of being labeled as the school diversity teacher and you want to build a curriculum and you float it out there to the members of your staff and faculty, and you say, here's what we got. I'm working on the curriculum. I intend to put together a class that all of y'all can help teach about all the bad things being done by white people. Just saying, it might not be met with a favorable response, especially by the white teachers who may look at this and go, what the heck, man? So anyway, Colorado public school diversity teacher said in private emails that she, I keep saying he, I don't know why, she was struggling with the urge not to burn things down, which doesn't represent equity, according to records reviewed by Fox News Digital. Story here on Fox News came out today. Casey Mininger, a diversity teacher in Jefferson County Public School District's Foster K-8 school. Mininger wanted classes to be focused on, quote, bad things done by white people, and goes on to say, his emails obtained by public record request showed that staff were not completely on board. And he was mad. She was mad because they were talking trash about it. It goes on and on. I know why I keep messing up, because the article goes from her to him. I have no idea what's happening. It had a bad idea. It did not go over well. It should get over it. But went on to say, the meetings are very difficult. I am trying to impact change in a positive way, but it's very hard not to want to burn things down. Okay. Maybe you're in the wrong job. You don't want to do what I say. I'm going to burn your house down. How about this? Boomer, I just want you to stop and reflect on the fact that NASCAR is far too white.
NASCAR is far too white.
NASCAR is far too white.
All righty.
Just
the cars themselves, or what?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's the people. Now you're just going to go ahead and be that guy.
I got to be that guy.
Got to be that guy.
Throw it in there.
Story here on Daily Wire. This Boomer gives me the business. Story here on Daily Wire. Headline, blatantly illegal. NASCAR bans white applicants from its diversity internship. Yeah, because that's okay to do. I mean, they obviously have learned nothing. NASCAR offers a paid diversity internship that excludes white people from applying on the basis of their race. A stipulation a constitutional lawyer tells Daily Wire is blatantly illegal. I'll be honest with you. I am not a rocket surgeon. I did not sleep at the Holiday Inn Express last night. I do have a law degree. Even without that, I could tell you just by, just cursory examination, this was not going to work.
Not going to work at all.
I mean, just,
Not at all. They were not thinking straight.
No. The race car giants diversity internship program states that there are racial requirements. The first bullet point listed on the heading program requirements reads, quote, be a member of one of the following races or ethnic minority classifications. And it labels them. You can be black or African American. I'm not sure which is which. Black or African American. American Indian or Alaskan Native. Asian, Latino or Hispanic. I don't know which one's which. Latino or Hispanic. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. What's an other Pacific Islander?
I don't know.
I know what a Pacific Islander is, but what's an other Pacific Islander?
It's the other island.
Oh, okay. It's the one down the way.
It's the one down the way. Wait, so do they actually have to be that ethnicity, or can they identify as that ethnicity?
Oh, and see, now you got to be that guy again.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, what are they trying to do here? Are they trying to go with what the whole country is trying to say, what is politically correct now, or what are they trying to do? Are they just trying to up their DEI? I don't know. It's
make
an
a
honest
great point,
question.
though. You make a great point. They did set the rules on us, right?
They did.
You can identify as that which you see fit.
So what are they trying to do? Are they just saying this guy over here has to identify now?
So they have the NASCAR, they have several. They have the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program. They have the Drive for Diversity Program, which includes race-based mentorship. They have the Pit Crew Development Program. So if you want to learn, okay, you want to be a pit guy. And it's only for people of certain colors or ethnic backgrounds.
Right.
So you just go ahead and identify. It's a paid internship program. Get you a job.
There you go.
I can sling a tire. I can sling a tire.
I'll toss you a wrench.
Toss me a wrench. So this is where we are. This is when common sense has left the room, y'all. But let me go one step further. I'm just going to suggest that if you are holding what is known as an anti-racist prayer service, that in doing so, you should not tell white people in the middle of the prayer they need to feel uncomfortable about being white. I'm just going to say that here's my idea. If I'm in a prayer service and someone looks at me and accuses me of things I haven't done simply because of my skin color, I rebuke them in the name of Jesus. Right there. Deal with that. How about this? Well, the guy, his name is Ryan Pauly. He heads up the Maine Health, that's Maine the state, Maine Health Executive. He's the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Maine Health. And he held an anti-racist prayer service. He also, by the way, holds a PhD in transformative studies, yes, and refers to himself as a minister of a group that calls itself the One Spirit Learning Alliance. Held a prayer service in which he asked for the white people to accept their racist narratives and biases and to feel bad about being white. I rebuke him in the name of Jesus. How about that? We'll come right back. I got a little more DEI fatigue. You tired of it? I think the world's tired of it. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios for hour number 3. We got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, I got to point something out to you guys. So during the breaks, you hear commercials running, right? Well, that's part of how we support this show. So listen, here's the deal. Rightside Radio, we are a standalone entity. We are not owned by the stations that we're on. We are a syndicated show with our own offices, our own studio, and basically what it takes to run this operation can be significant at times. And part of the way we do that is by advertising sales. So if you hear this show and you're thinking, man, those guys got it going on, I want to align my business with them because they think like me and talk like me, well, we'd love to have you. But you don't call the station because you got to call us direct. So here's the deal. Go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. And click on the spot where it says advertising and contact. Just send us an email. We will jump on it, get right back to you. Love to have you in the fold. So join the Rightside team, advertise with Rightside Radio, and we'll talk to you about it when you do. All right. Hey, listen, I got a caller on line 1. Let me grab that real quick. Is that Brian? Brian from Huntsville. How you doing, buddy?
Been better, been worse, just like everybody else out there.
Good enough.
So,
what's on your mind, man?
But at that, before I make the comment, I want to know whatever happened to the attitude that a lot of people went behind. Remember a band called Three Dog Night, mid to late 60s and early 70s?
Yeah, great melody.
Going, the ink is black, the page is white, together we learn to read and write. Why can't we have that attitude now that was then?
Well, or we could go with the next generation, Michael Jackson and Sir Paul singing Ebony and Ivory. Why not?
But because I don't like that. I like the sentiment of the song, but I don't like the song.
What's your thoughts on NASCAR, dude?
I'm wondering, does the National Hockey League, NHL, have the same DEI officer requirements as NASCAR now does? Because I tell you what, I've seen more gentlemen of color in NASCAR than I have in the NHL.
Well, that brings up a point. If hockey's too white, we got to do something about this. I mean,
indubitably.
Just it bears watching. We'll check it out.
All right, y'all have a blessed
day. See you, Brian. I'll get a few more text messages before I jump back into my topic. We're in number 2, DEI fatigue. Are we facing a point where DEI has finally overplayed its hand, worn out its welcome, and now we are seeing DEI fatigue? With regards to NASCAR, John from Brownsboro says, so they want to take out Bud Light and NASCAR. So like the moonshiners are going to take it back to the streets. Yeah, that's why NASCAR got started. Why not? And John also commented on my monologue earlier. Says, bless you in your intro. A child's laughter is an acceptance of their identity wholeheartedly, and anyone questioning their kids needs to question their own self. Not to put it in their child's heads, at such a young age, and certainly not by coercion. Thank you. John from Brownsboro, appreciate that. Jeff from Indiana. I would have asked that guy at that prayer service to renounce his pedophilic tendencies and then see what he says. Sometimes you got to say something off the wall to get them back to reality and see how what they're saying is so stupid. I know. I get it, man. Allie from Athens says, well, and thank you, Allie, says, proud of you for going there, sir. A whole lot of rebuking needs to be done after that. Thank you, ma'am. Mike from Coxie, other Pacific Island, Guam. Okay, that is an other Pacific Island, I suppose. There's also, of course, there's Maui. And then, of course, there's, Fiji. And then what else? Going back down here, we got Moon Pie from Madison texted in earlier, quoting part of what my dialogue was about the gambling situation. He says, regarding gambling, Phil, it is currently regulated into illegality. Me, amen. He says, preach, Brother Phil. Thanks, man. Appreciate it very much. All right, look, DEI. So DEI in universities is pretty rampant. We've often found universities, they've been this way for years, to be the place where, you're supposed to be going for the idea of learning, not just, book learning, but truly how to process dialogue, think, develop thought processes and opinions, not always working out that way. But we've also found them to be, oftentimes hotbeds of liberalism. It just has been. Academia has been had that reputation for many moons. Well, we're seeing right now, though, there's a push. There is a push underway to begin moving away from DEI statements. If you're not familiar, there are a lot of universities that have actually been requiring their staff to sign a DEI statement or to provide a written statement about how they will support DEI initiatives. Almost like hey, if you're going to be employed here, you got to be in the club. Show us how serious you are. Sign the pledge. So, story here on Fox News, dated 2 weeks ago. Universities across the country have deployed diversity statement requirements to serve as what critics say is a political litmus test to push left-wing ideologies like critical race theory in America's higher education institutions. But some universities are pushing back on the practice as a condition of hiring, including the Arizona university system. So the Arizona Board of Regents, which encompasses like Arizona State, University of Arizona, the Northern Arizona University, the Arizona Board of Regents told Fox News Digital that while the use of DEI statements has never been required, that some departments at the universities may have actually included a request for a DEI statement. Oh, yeah, they did. Not a little bit. Like, if you were going to be hired there, rather than having a cover letter, they required you sometimes to write up to a 2-page detailed letter regarding your efforts in activism or commitment to the DEI regime. See, this is like, they're not even pretending, y'all. Arizona, though, by the way, now is the latest to ditch mandatory DEI statements. It's also been seen in Texas, Missouri, North Carolina. You heard my conversation a while ago with State Senator Arthur Orr. I would love to believe that perhaps Alabama will be close behind, and we'll see some change so that we can stop seeing things like nursing students leaving the program at University of Alabama because they feel like they've been put into a bad spot by constantly having to, get on board with the DEI and CRT curriculums. But then you can tell when the panic is set in because the adherents to DEI are like, wait a minute, what are y'all doing backing off? We got to have this. There's a piece that I pulled from HR Today. That's Human Resources Today magazine. HR Today came out just in the last week or so. It says 3 years ago, companies all over the world issued their bold commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but the 2023 Kelly Global Rework Report shows that for many organizations, commitment to DEI has plateaued, a sign perhaps of DEI fatigue. But then they go on to talk about how awful this is going to be. I mean, it's going to destroy the workforce. What are we going to do? They surveyed 4,200 workers, 1,500 executives across 9 industries. What did they find? 43% say they've experienced non-inclusive behaviors. What does that mean, by the way, a non-inclusive behavior? If a non-inclusive behavior is, just the stuff in the locker room that's always been there, okay. If the non-inclusive behavior is, you'll never get a raise here because we don't like the way you look, that's a different story. But they've experienced non-inclusive behaviors. 37% say they work in a psychologically unsafe environment. Then go find another job. It says a lack of leadership buy-in, though, is astounding, considering that executives realize this DEI failure is having a negative impact on company performance. Do they? Do they really? So here's the bottom line, folks. If you're running a company and you find that there is an effective means to run that company which makes the company more productive, don't you think for maybe 1 second that the executives might go, hey, this is working, man. We got to do more of this. At the same time, if they also look at the manner in which the company is being run and they find certain things that are not cost effective, they have zero return on their investment, they're really not doing what they were billed as doing, and then times get hard like in the Biden economy, what do you think's the first thing to go? Yeah, probably those things that are non-productive, that don't reach the bottom line. And if all they're doing is destroying meritocracy by constantly playing up the notion that we need people because of how they look and not because of how they work, how effective will the organization be if they maintain that? You give that a generation and there will be no productivity left. All right. We're going to take a break. We'll come right back from this break, and I'm thinking it's going to be time for a few more text messages, and then we'll be jumping into, is common sense uncommon? It ain't just DEI. There's a lot of other stuff going on out there, too. I'll tell you about it. Woo! Wait till you hear about Chicago. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, it has been dumping some rain over here in northeast Alabama. I mean, like, wow. Did you look at the radar here most recently? What'd you see?
Big old blob of green.
Big old blob of green. Has it got any
old-
red mixed in with it?
Not where we were.
Boy, it was coming down in sheets
Maybe
a
a
minute
little
ago.
yellow.
I mean, it's the kind of thing when you hear it smacking the window like rocks, it's like,
You look outside, it's blowing sideways.
yeah. All right. Tops on the Jeep. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Hey, listen, by the way, I got to tell you, you guys, if you haven't already figured it out, one of our newest sponsors, Southern Immediate Care, is really doing good stuff. So Southern Immediate Care is a chain of medical clinics all across North Alabama. You can find them in places like Gadsden, Atala, Anniston, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. Their 2 newest ones are in Chelsea and Hoover. They are open 7 days a week, y'all. And they see all ages. So if you need something for, your pediatrics all the way up to your geriatrics, they can take care of it. Walk-ins are welcome. They can do vaccinations and x-rays right there on the spot. Staff is always friendly. Places are clean. And by the way, this is who I use personally. Southern Immediate Care is where I go in the Gadsden area. So if you need something, like any day of the week, and you need medical attention, Southern Immediate Care, they can take care of you. I know the guy that owns this whole chain personally, think the world of him, and I highly recommend them. Southern Immediate Care. Just look on their website and find the location nearest to you. I am certain you'll be pleased. And do me a favor when you do, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. All right, hey, listen, I'm going to jump over into the next topic. I'm calling this, Is Common Sense Uncommon? And I've got a series of stories that lead me to have to say that. Is common sense, is it just gotten uncommon? Well, especially among liberals it has. And so it's almost like a nice little segue. So I just did the whole section there on DEI and DEI fatigue, and we had our discussion with State Senator Arthur Orr. But are there examples of like DEI gone bad? Well, yeah, and when I say is common sense uncommon, there's a great article to kick this piece off in The Federalist. This article came out on August 23rd. The Federalist, here's the headline. Woke hiring is not just killing American competence, it might kill you. Well, that'll get your attention. Opens up talking about the fires in Maui, the tragedy of what we saw in Maui and across the islands. Says there are plenty of heartbreaking details yet to resurface about the fires that raged through Maui and leveled the seaside town of Lahaina. But there's little doubt that government incompetence contributed to the tragedy. Goes on to talk about several things, but it says perhaps worst of all, aside from firefighting that wasn't effective or blocking roads for evacuation or, sending out warnings or not sending out warnings at all, says perhaps worst of all, the Department of Land and Natural Resources delayed the release of water that landowners wanted to help protect their property from fires until it was too late. According to the Honolulu Civil Beat. It says 4 people with knowledge of the situation told the local outlet that a guy by the name of Kaleo Manuel, he's the agency's deputy director for water resource, balked when the Maui Property Management Company's desperate request for water came in. He balked for 5 hours while it burned. They needed extra water diverted to their systems for pressure, and he balked for 5 hours. He is on the record, by the way, as having previously worked with the Obama Foundation. And he says in the past he has talked about how Hawaiians need to coexist with their water resources. What does that even mean? So, oh, by the way, the point is made, is this the kind of guy you want in charge of decisions that might save or cost your life? There is zero common sense in that. You need to I don't know about diverting water to you to put out a fire that might burn down your house and save lives. I just feel like we need to coexist with our water resources. We do coexist. We live with them. But it goes on to make other points. It says hiring people who score high on the DEI rubrics instead of their job qualifications, or just by flat out hiring people who want to tear down systems they're supposed to be running, is just playing with fire. And this is a classic example. But then it gives others. Like, for instance, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, is apparently currently advertising for new air traffic controllers. Wow. Using what they call direct hiring authorities. Okay. To expedite the hiring of people with severe disabilities such as complete paralysis, severe intellectual disabilities, and psychiatric troubles. Excuse me? And then it says, does that not make you feel confident in the people you entrust every time your life with every time you fly? And then he goes on to say airlines like United and American are now openly hiring people based on characteristics like race and sex, which last I checked, the author puts in writing, have nothing to do with knowing how to fly a plane. In a twist of fate that definitely no one could have foreseen, the last 12 months have delivered some of the highest numbers of near collisions and narrowly averted disasters in modern aviation history. Go figure! But when you hire based upon having to break glass ceilings and using diversity, equity, and inclusion metrics, well, what do you think you're going to get? You set aside merit and capability and skill and background and experience in order to hire somebody so that you can say you checked a block? Then he goes on to say, speaking of entrusting your life to someone, have you been to the doctor's office lately? How does it feel to depend on medical professionals who ask you on their opening questionnaire whether you're a man or a woman? Point taken. I'll skip a few of these because there's quite a few. Boomer's cracking up over here. It was also apparently the mindset of the CEO of OceanGate. You may recall them diving on the Titanic, who had explained how he didn't want to hire a bunch of 50-year-old white guys and then tragically died in his own submersible earlier this year. Need more examples? Just look at how the world's greatest fighting force has stopped winning recruits in wars thanks to the incompetence in charge. Are you surprised when top brass funnel chunks of that big old defense budget that Republicans keep voting for with subsidizing things like service member abortions and transgender disfigurements? That's the deal. Is common sense uncommon? Are we there? When I get back from this break, listen, we're going to go down that road some more. I'll take some of your text messages. But the truth is, there are places right now where liberalism, wokeism, has been allowed to have a foothold, and it like just crushes common sense, crushes it. Like meritocracy means nothing. Responsibility, accountability, nothing. It's all about, hey, we got an agenda. That's what matters. Common sense, uncommon. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That would be this one, Alabama. And I mean to say this show like sends its signal way on down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I got to tell you, in case you haven't seen it yet, you need to Google police ram environmental activists. Just do that. Are they Texas? No, they're Arizona. I think they're tribal police. And there's the Burning Man music festival out there in Arizona in the desert. Climate activists decided to set up their trailer, block the highway, keep everybody from getting to the festival in some form of protest, chaining themselves to their trailers and all kinds of goofiness, putting up their signs. And one police officer in his truck just literally drove right through their trailer, just drove right through it, just plowed it right out of the way, got out with a taser and put them all on the ground and started arresting people and dragging them off the road. It was epic. So it's the way it should be, in my opinion. Hey, before I go any further, let me grab a phone call. My brethren, Jeff from Indiana is on the line. Hey, Jeff Rowe, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Phil. Got back from vacation down to Gatlinburg.
Well, how was your time in the Smoky Mountains?
Oh, if you're a Jeep guy, you should have been there. There was at least 5,000 Jeeps in Pigeon Forge yesterday.
Oh, I know. You know, I've even got friends that actually opened a Jeep parts shop up there just for that very reason. I wish I could have been there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially seeing the Gladiator, the tandem Gladiator. That was cool.
Oh yeah, is that the one that has 6 wheels?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh my God.
That is way cool.
I've never seen so many. Literally, there was 5,000 Jeeps in town, and I'm not shorting that any. It's crazy.
Well, that's all right. Well, it's the mecca of Jeepness right now. But what else is on your mind, man?
Hey, you know, Darwinism is going to play a big part in the Democrats' survival. I mean, they're literally not intelligent enough to live. Basically, you know, if Joe Biden, he's the one guy who can. He doesn't need any Secret Service because he could literally walk down the street and nobody would touch that man, even though he's not intelligent enough to even mow your grass. I mean, he has no idea what's going on. But the vice president is so bad that no one would want anything to happen to him.
I think that's the conundrum they've boxed themselves into. I look at it and think they were so swept up into get Trump that they were willing to throw anybody out there. But they were also scared to death of Bernie Sanders, and so what they wind up with Biden Harris, and it's a joke.
It's what diversity gets you.
Yes,
because the only 2 boxes she checks is female and a female of color, I guess, because she's half Indian, she's half black, and it's got to check anything that's non-white, I guess, would suffice.
I think they needed a glass ceiling breaker, apparently, and they needed California. And so they thought that's what they were going to do because she's from California. But it's also put them in the position now they don't know what to do. Do we get rid of Joe? Well, then we got Kamala. Can we get rid of both? Well, she's not going to die of old age anytime soon, so what do we do? It's
I don't know. I think they would turn on her, the people who's in charge. Well, whoever's telling Joe what to do, if they couldn't tell her what to do, she would probably be, disappeared before long and everything. And as corrupt as our government is, we can sit there and think about, that, that would never happen in America and everything. But I think a lot of that's what happened to Kennedy. If you really think about it.
Makes you wonder. Certainly what's happening to Trump. I mean, how dare you stand up to the machine? But all right, man. Well, hey, listen, be careful. You're not on the road today. Is that right?
No, right now I pulled over to talk to you. I'm in Lincoln Ferry Park, where Abraham Lincoln, as a young man, used to run a ferry across the Ohio River here, and he was sued for it.
He was sued for it?
Yes, he was. If you look it up and everything, he was supposed to be have some kind of permit or something, I think, and he was sued in a courthouse across the river here in Kentucky.
And he still went on to be president.
And I think that's what maybe made him, become a lawyer.
Oh, wow. Very cool. All right, Jeff Rowe, appreciate you, man. Have a good day. Sorry, I guess he's gone. Let me just jump back on the topic even in more detail. He was pointing out common sense is out the door with the Biden administration. Yes, it is. I'll tell you right now, there are other places. I mentioned that last article with the idea that some of this wokeness can actually kill you, and gave great examples as to how. How about this? What in God's name is going on with Chicago? They had an opportunity to elect a more moderate mayor. They had Lori Lightfoot, which was a train wreck. Crime is through the roof. Businesses are flooding out of Chicago. And what do? They elected Mayor Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson is an activist. If you're not familiar, his career was built on his time serving in the teachers union. And he now is basically, he's mad. If you point out crime, if you're the victim, he doesn't want to hear it, because there's going to be a reason why this happened, and it's got nothing to do with enforcement of criminal laws. He is now suing auto manufacturers because their cars get stolen too often. Let that sink in. The mayor of Chicago has filed suit against Kia and Hyundai because they don't do enough to make it hard to steal their cars. I'm not kidding. Townhall.com article came out 4 days ago. It's titled, "The Nonsensical Way Chicago's Mayor is Attempting to Crack Down on Crime." Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson announced on Thursday, this is a week ago. On Thursday, the city is suing automakers Kia and Hyundai for their, quote, failure to include industry standard engine immobilizers in their multiple models of their vehicles. He says the impact of car theft on Chicago residents can be deeply destabilizing, particularly for low to middle income workers who have fewer options getting to work. The failure of Kia and Hyundai to install basic auto theft prevention technology in these models is sheer negligence. And as a result, a citywide and nationwide crime spree around automobile theft has been unfolding before our eyes, said Johnson. It's got nothing to do with their soft on crime policies. Nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with the fact that they have no common sense in how to run a city. I mean, you're going to go soft on crime, talk about defund the police, kneel down in front of Black Lives Matter protesters, and then you're going to wonder what's going on when crime goes through the roof. And oh, by the way, it's got nothing to do with the auto manufacturers. Nothing. If those cars are being stolen, it's got something to do with the criminals. But he's suing the auto manufacturers. To what end? We shall see. I can smell a motion to dismiss from here. Okay, here's one for you. What do you do when common sense is so uncommon that it's not even there? Daily Signal has a story. Came out 4 days ago. Headline, just how many imprisoned men who identify as transgender are guilty of sexual assault? More than half, a new data shows. First of all, you have to wonder what in God's name is going on when the state of Wisconsin actually has 161 biological men who are currently housed in women's facilities because they identify differently, of which 81 of those have reportedly been convicted of at least one count of sexual assault or sexual abuse as recently as this year. Over 50%. Over 50% of these dudes who identify as chicks also have criminal history as to sexual assault, and yet they're putting them into women's prisons to have to share a cell with a woman. And that's not a recipe for disaster? Mike Howell, who works for a group called the Oversight Project as part of the Heritage Foundation, he said putting sex offenders claiming to be women in cells with women is another reason the world laughs at America's moral decline. Prison is for punishment, not for degenerate sexual behavior. Folks, it is not hard. Common sense is not really hard. To defy common sense is hard. It is much harder to deny the obvious. There are times in court where we look at what's called a prima facie case. As an attorney, I can tell you, like I've got a situation right now where I'm representing a company and there are two defendants. Of those two defendants, we're just trying to get the court to tell us what to do with either one of them being due some money. Both claim it, and all we're saying is, Judge, we just want you to tell us which one. One of those has what we call the prima facie case, because the evidence leads to believe that it's them, but another one has laid a claim. A prima facie case means it's pretty obvious. This is what it is. Well, common sense is more often than not what I would call the prima facie case of things in life. If you've got a guy who's a sex offender who now tells you he's a chick and he wants to go stay in a women's prison, wink, wink, nod, nod, maybe there's an issue. I'm just going to throw that out there. That maybe common sense you look at and go, that might not work. Like maybe, just maybe, there will be a problem. Like, I don't know, maybe, just maybe, the sex offender, you might look back at the history and go, yeah, let's not mollycoddle that behavior. Let's keep him in general population with the dudes. All right, we're going to take a break right now. Common sense, too often uncommon. That's this third part of the Triple Dipper. It's been a good show. We got a little more when we come back. I'll take some text messages. Man, I got a lot of text messages. I got to see what's up. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I am just thinking that somebody else who is just plain right that y'all need to know about is ZLA Solutions. So yeah, ZLA Solutions, been with us since this show began over 2 years ago. ZLA Solutions, they are epic good at helping you make your businesses better. So if you need help with like quality control, sorting and containment, logistics, warehousing, they can do all of that stuff and more. But then again, you might also want to know their bread and butter remains staffing. If you need people, ZLA Solutions, man, they can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing if necessary. They can find you blue collar, white collar, no collar. It don't matter. They can find them all. They can find onesies and twosies or a whole shift of people. And I mean, they do it for all kinds of industries, automotive manufacturing, service industries, hospitals, all of it. So yeah, ZLA Solutions. I know these folks personally. I think the world of them. I believe in what they do and who they are. And I hope that if you need something for your business, especially if you're looking for people, you'll go to their website, check them out, zlausa.com. That's ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. And then do me a favor, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, man, the text messages just flowing. Let's see what we got here. John from Huntsville, the grades are in, Boomer. Says, Boomer, I felt like you did a decent job today, so you get a solid A. Okay. Brian from Huntsville, you get an A+ for another flawless singing performance. Phil, you did a fantastic job today. You get an A ++. However, if you join Boomer's college football pick'em game, I'll give you enough extra credit points for an A++. Either way, you're still today's winner. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. And yes, I'm going to be in the pick'em. I'm getting in there today. JT from Lacey Springs, a warehouse project tasked with years ago. Building inspector shows up and says, you need handicapped access. It was noted that all entries are street level. Common sense. Here's your sign. Yes. You know what? And here's the thing, too. If all they did was put up a handicapped sign on that, everybody would have gone, because every one of them was handicapped accessible. You mark the doors that are designed for purely handicapped accessibility. If they're all handicapped accessible, what are you supposed to do? Leanne from Huntsville texted in and said, the minute cell phones became popular, common sense went out the window. Driving, anyone? It sounds like Leanne's got some road rage going on. Jim from Huntsville says, hey, Phil, I don't think the question is whether they have common sense or not. I believe the question is whether they have any sense at all. I agree. Hey, here's another one for you. In this third dipper, is common sense uncommon? Well, Dr. Jordan Peterson. Some of y'all may know him. He's got an incredible mind, a great ability to communicate truth. Dr. Jordan Peterson, he's actually a psychologist from Canada. I believe he may actually be on staff with Daily Wire. But the story that I got here came from The Blaze. So if you're not aware, we've just about lost Canada. Wokeists are just out of their minds in Canada. And too often they have the Canadian government in their pocket. It says a governing body for psychologists in Canada has now ordered Dr. Jordan Peterson to undergo re-education training after complete strangers took issues with his views he expressed online. Pray tell, what kind of tragic views could he have shared? Well, he was critical of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and a member of his staff for being involved in a scandal. He suggested that cutting off a women's breasts in an effort to make them into transgender men is a criminal thing. He retweeted a comment made by the leader of Canada's official opposition party about the severity of COVID lockdowns. He refused to undergo the regulatory board's equivalent of what he called a Maoist struggle section because of what they called his unlawful speech. Speech, y'all. He's a psychologist. He has opinions. And they came back and said he will go through re-education or lose his license. Really? His response, I'm not complying. I'm not submitting to re-education. I'm not admitting that my viewpoints, many of which have, by the way, been entirely justified by the facts that have emerged since the complaints were levied, were either wrong or unprofessional. I've done nothing to compromise those in my care. Quite the contrary. I have served all my clients and millions of people I'm communicating with to the best of my ability and in good faith, and that's that. So instead of bending the knee, he's telling them what they can do with their license. Good for him, Dr. Jordan Peterson. Man, and I tell you, what Common sense is just too often uncommon. Classic one more. Fox News has a story from 6 days ago. And this is one of those they're accusing of being what they call a NIMBY lawsuit. NIMBY, it's an acronym, not in my backyard. NIMBY says a council meeting in Millbrae, California became rowdy as residents came out in droves to protest a hotel being turned into homes for the homeless. Look, if you've got a nice hotel in an upscale area and you've got a homeless problem and you won't deal with it, and you think the solution is to seize the hotel and turn it into basically a homeless shelter, someone's going to have a problem. Why would you be surprised? Oh, because you don't have any common sense. It says multiple residents asked the county executive questions and expressed frustration over the proposal, asking how they could stop it from happening. They filled out the 300-person room to capacity as some were trying to listen from the outside. Folks, I'm just telling you, we've lost California. We've lost Canada. We can't lose here. Common sense has got to be allowed its room to prevail. Common sense is the prima facie case for what is working. When you defy common sense, it's harder. Common sense is actually what works. Common sense is looking at what is normal, what is right, what is true, what is working, and saying, that's what we need to be doing. When you lack common sense, when common sense becomes uncommon, that's when you wind up having the problems. And that, my friends, is 3 dippers in one day with 2 interviews on the air. Wow! Full show, boom shakalaka. Full show.
Full show.
Full show. Full show. And we got plenty more where that came from for the rest of this week. So I'm just telling you, listen, watch the weather. It's blowing through. We're seeing it here, there, and the other. But folks, we do this because of y'all. We love you. Have an amazing night. Boomer and I back here tomorrow, too. We will see you then.